King's Sip. That's the name of the song you're hearing right now. It is from the band Beware the Dangers of a Ghost Scorpion. You can find it on their EP, Vile Chat, and you can find them on ghostscorpion.bandcamp.com. I love playing Beware the Dangers of a Ghost Scorpion here on the show. They're one of my favorite bands that I've discovered ever since we launched the podcast devoted to the classic and sometimes not so classic genre cinema of yesteryear. We did that over 13 years ago as Monster Kid Radio. We are now Bride of Monster Kid Radio, and I am still your writer, host, and producer, Derek M. Cook. Welcome to the show. Thank you for being here. Thanks for tuning in, downloading, streaming, whatever it is you're doing right now to consume the show. Thank you for doing it. I'm excited to have you here. So we have a first-timer here on the show, somebody that's never been on Monster Kid Radio or Bride of Monster Kid Radio before, but it's somebody that I've been aware of for quite some time because he is involved with the Monster Bash convention. He's also an author, and after chatting with him, I can confidently say he's one heck of a good guy, and I can't wait to have him back on the show again. But before I have him again, I got to get him the first time around, and that's what he's doing this week on the show, when he's going to tell us about his new book, King Kong vs. Godzilla, the most colossal conflict the screen has ever known. We're going to talk about some of his other books as well, his history as a monster kid, and we're even going to bust out the Classic 5 game. It's going to be a good time. So that's coming up later in this episode. Of course, it would not be an episode of Bride of Monster Kid Radio if we did not have the Beta Capsule review, courtesy of fellow podcaster Mark Matzke, where he is going through every single episode of Ultraman, every series of Ultraman. And right now we're talking about Ultraman Taro, and he's got his Beta Capsule review, his thoughts on episode 18 of that series. Also, Kenny is back with his look at Famous Monsters of Filmland. Now, Kenny was not able to participate in last week's episode, where in our own way we paid some respect to the man, Bob Burns. Well, Kenny wanted to get in on that. So before we get to anything else here in this episode, we're going to hear from Kenny with his look at Famous Monsters of Filmland with his tribute to Bob Burns. That's all coming up right after this.
Here he is. Watch out, for here is a superhuman with the strength of 100 men. No one and nothing seems able to stop him. Invincible, invulnerable. Argo Man, the fantastic Superman. But even he had his Achilles heel, a beautiful woman's kiss.
Kill each other. Kill each other.
Argo Man, the fantastic Superman.
Kill each other.
A man gifted with such extraordinary powers that ordinary men were helpless to cope with him. Everyone and everything was pitted against him, from hired killers to the most diabolical inventions of modern science. The world's most beautiful women vied for his favors, or the chance to kill him.
Kill each other.
Argo Man, the fantastic Superman. which will take you on a journey out of time, carry you on a crest of thrills and laughter from start to finish. Be sure to see this Superman power. Don't miss it.
I'm William Castle, and I feel obligated to warn you about the next attraction you will see at this theater. The picture is The Tingler, which I directed. And for the first time in motion picture history, members of the audience, including you, will actually play a part in the picture. You will feel some of the physical reactions, the shocking sensations experienced by the actors on the screen. I guarantee that The Tingler has more shocks per minute than my last film, The House on Haunted Hill. But don't be alarmed. You can protect yourself. When you see the picture, you will be told, and remember the instruction, how you can guard yourself from attack by The Tingler.
Hello there, Bride of Monster Kid Radioheads. This is Kenny with a look at Famous Monsters of Filmland. Today we are going to continue our homage to Monster Kid extraordinaire Bob Burns. In the early days of FM, 2 articles were printed about this up-and-coming makeup artist and collector. Let's look first at FM 13 from August of 1961. He's a son of Frankenstein, son of a mummy, son of a goon. In fact, a son of every one of the famous monsters is Bob Burns, horror's hottest newcomer. Bob be nimble, Bob be quick, Bob jump over the candlestick. Whoops, Bob Burns. One by one, the candles of life flicker out for the old-time horror actors. Last year, Zuko. Early this, that venerable old thespian, Thesiger. Lugosi lives on as a shadow on the silver screen, but will never create a new characterization. Where are the new horror actors to come from? The Cheneys, Atwells, et al. Of tomorrow. Will their names be John Lackey, Frank Coe, Chris Robinson, Mitch Evans, John Andrews, Bob Burns? Bob Burns! Ah, now there's a name to conjure with. Robert Burns in Fall of the Hearse of Usher. I Was a Tana-Aged Mummy. Dr. Heckle and Mr. Jibe. Are these films that we may see on the marquee in 1963? We know one thing here at Famous Monsters, and in this photo feature we are sharing it with you. Bob Burns has already begun to make his mark in monsterdom, in a big way, on TV. Bob Burns is now in Hollywood playing his favorite role, civilian, but a couple of seasons ago while he was a GI, which also stands for Ghoul Incorporated, he put Texas into a state of shock, and considering what a big state Texas is, you can appreciate the size of the shock. Out of his Army budget of $78 a month, Private Burns managed to create the magnificent makeups you see in this article. The citizens of San Antonio and surrounding cities had the pleasure of seeing him live for 9 months as the many-faced monster that regularly horrified Joe Alston, host of the local Shock Theater. On Friday nights, the Bob Burns Show, as all his relatives call it, polled higher in the popularity than Jack Parr. For this reason, to this day, Jack will not speak to Bob, and vice versa, although just possibly it has something to do with the fact that neither has ever been introduced to the other. Some of the stunts that made Bob such a hit were these. The series showed 3 of the Mummy films, including The Mummy's Curse and The Mummy's Ghost. Bob made himself up as the 30 centuries old mummy, wrapped in rotting dust-caked gauze, and before the picture began, he was seen lying inert on a table with a weird little urn filled with dry ice, giving off smoke by his side. The host explained, 6 Tana leaves keep him alive. 9 give him movement. At the end of the picture, as the host was about to call the eerie proceedings to a halt, he laughed at the audience and said, "Of course, we all know that there is no such thing as a living mummy." And at that moment, Bob, looking like Rap Van Winkle, came to life and tanned the host's hide. While the late George Zucco was probably still alive, Bob played a part in conjunction with the revival of Zucco's Mad Monster. In the picture, Zucco zigs people with his hypodermic, and the victims zag this way and that. In the prologue, the host raised a syringe, tested it, then plunged it into the arm of Bob, who lay in a state of suspended animation. "It is remarkable," remarked the host, "how violently chemicals can act on the human body. This fluid has the power to change this ordinary human being into a vicious beast." At the end of the film, the host checks on sleeping Bob to see if the experiment has worked. At first, he is disappointed. No change has taken place. But then, in a carefully switched-in pre-film segment, Bob began to turn into a werewolf before the audience's eyes. "Igor, Igor, no, no!" cried the terrified host, but in vain. For that night, the coming attraction was announced by Bob the Werewolf Burns as he sat in the host's usual chair. Young Burns' ambition is to become so well established as a monster star that one day his pictures will give pleasuresome shudders to people all over the world, and he'll rate a cover on Famous Monsters of Filmland. We feel he's well on his way with performances such as we've already described here, and further highlights of his career which will be relived in our 14th issue. Don't miss the next number with photo revelations of Bob's makeups and pranks in conjunction with the Mad Ghoul, Dead Man's Eyes, King Kong, the invasion of the Body Snatchers, etc. See his wife as the Bride of Frankenstein. See Bob in an original makeup as the Creation. Horror's hottest newcomer is a real cool ghoul. Next up, this is from issue 15, from January of 1962. Last issue's introduction to new horror artist Bob Burns kindled your desire to delve deeper into the history and histrionics of this flaming youth. Says Bob, "Setting heroines' hearts on fear is my hobby." And we thought that sort of thing died out with cannibalism. Heartwarming, isn't it? Not so. It's heart-warning. The return of Byrne, horror's hottest newcomer, applies the flame of his mad genius to television. A real pig's heart was actually used by Bob for one of his many thrill stunts when he played the weekly monster on Ken's TV Shock Theater in San Antonio, Texas. It was in conjunction with the telecasting of The Mad Ghoul, starring the late George Zucco as a heart stealer, that Bob installed the pig's pumper in a small aquarium. So cleverly was it rigged with a tube that the heart gave the appearance of beating while it floated up and down like a living captive in a tank of water. Don O'Ham's brain, taken from another pig Bob made famous, was used in connection with the live interludes of The Black Sleep. As Bob sat in Joe Alston's eerie chair that night, host Alston carved with a scalpel on what gave every evidence of being Bob's bare brain. In reality, it was the think box of a poor ex-porker. But no need to feel sorry for him, explained Bob. He was a perfect swine who'd been caught robbing his own mother's piggy bank. Bob has not only made himself up as many telemonsters, he has produced a homemade horror movie called The Monster. It is essentially the Frankenstein plot, describes Bob. I play Dr. Stonecraft Shelley, a mad doctor who electrically creates life, vitalizing a corpse, who then throttles my assistant, smashes my lab, and in general reacts in a very hostile fashion towards me, his loving creator. In the end, he blows himself and me up. After that shattering experience, it took me a long time to pull myself together. In fact, it was several years before I was able to manage more than a bit part. Bob is happily married to a comely lass named Kathy, but Kathy calmly admits that the first time her husband-to-be invited her to his home was almost the last time. A bloody eyeball 7 feet tall and 7 feet wide stared at me when I entered the living room, she recalled with a shudder. A poster from It Came from the Outer Space, Bob explained. I didn't understand what had upset Mrs. Burns, and told her so. Well, that big red eye on the wall, wailed Kathy. Forgetting she was talking to the editor of Famous Monsters, she insisted, Did you ever know anybody who papered their wall like that? What could I answer? I was astonished. Naturally, I replied, "Doesn't everybody?" I had forgotten, but Bob reminded me. It was through me, indirectly, that he had got his start in professional monsterdom. I had got Paul Blaisdell the job of building the Beast with a Million Eyes, and introduced Burns to him. During his interview, Bob said Blaisdell taught me all the basics of how to be beastly. Like Jackie, Mrs. Blaisdell, who helped her husband with many of his creations, Bob credits his little woman, 10 feet tall in her stocking feet, with being the costume designer in his galaxy of horrors. Kathy builds the undergarments. I guess you'd call them the foundations of the monster suits. When he called Kathy's mummy wrappings her most rotten job, Bob was really praising the realism of his wife's horrendous handiwork. Dead Man's Eyes, Lon Chaney Jr., was selected as the fright feature to welcome the new year several seasons ago on San Antonio's Shock Theater. And that midnight, Bob made himself up as the village idiot, Igor. Host Alston was about to toast the audience and usher in the new year when he noticed something lacking from the drinks. No olives. "Wait," cried the host. "Igor, stop bouncing those eyeballs on the floor and let's have some real highballs." At which command, Igor plunked the optics into the drink, thereby creating an icy drink known as the Detective Cocktail. Why the detective? Simple, dear Watson, because each one was topped with a private eye. Confidentially, it winks. A program that was a real prop man's dream, Bob told me, was the job we did when King Kong was our big attraction. A mock-up was built of the standard haunted house painting with which we usually open the program. Kathy and I created a Kong-sized gorilla hand, and at the end of the picture when the host commented, "Well, beauty killed the beast. The mighty Kong is dead, but he'll live forever in our hearts and in our minds." The TV eye panned to a close-up of the model house, and I moved in with my gigantic ape's paw and proceeded to demolish it while the camera kept cutting back every once in a while to the interior of a studio set where the walls were shaking and the lights flickering and plaster falling and the chandelier swaying like the Phantom of the Opera was swinging on it. The greatest show since the San Francisco earthquake. That is all for this week's look at Famous Monsters of Filmland. We will have more next time. For BMKR, this is Kenny saying adios.
Fission science creates an electronic monster so terrifying only screams can describe it.
Come back home. Come back home.
According to the evidence, Hennessy was murdered by a creature with atom rays of superhuman strength, and a creature that cannot be killed by bullets.
I said I would live to see you die.
I just came from the Bureau. They checked the murderer's fingerprints. His name is Willard Pierce. They let me have it from the files.
Petty theft, fraud, 3 months in prison, tuberculosis.
How could a tubercular man have strength enough to break those bars like that?
You think that's something? Answer this one. How could a dead man have strength enough to do it?
Fantastic, but based on scientific fact.
Planes. How low they're flying. You will stop all planes and trucks searching for radioactivity. If you do not, many people will be killed. There will be no other warning.
Hello! 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 They hung up before I could put a tracer on it.
Slow down, Dave.
Dave, did they? No. Go out and kill them.
escapes and meets his greatest foe, the Kong of Steel. A gargantuan duel, unmatched by any battle in history. Thundering 60-foot robot Kong of Steel, creation of the evil Dr. Who, criminal genius who stops at nothing. Kong, once again, dig! King Kong shakes the earth. King Kong fights for life against the copter squadron. Thrills as King Kong battles the Serpent of Mondo Island.
Not this Kong!
Hits himself against the nation's armament. And plunges a beautiful girl into a world of terror. King Kong in a duel to the death.
Live from the Land of Light in Nebula M78, home of the mighty Ultra Heroes, it's Monster Kid Radio's Beta Capsule Review. Ultraman Taro, Episode 18. Zoffy died, Taro died too. Original air date, August 3rd, 1973. Taro fights for his life against Birdon, but after sustaining multiple stab wounds to the chest, the hero's light goes out. Birdon then turns on Kaiju Chemgilla, destroying and consuming the giant silkworm in grisly fashion. Kenichi's friend Takashi is rescued as the prayers of Tokyo's children ascend on behalf of Taro. They are heard and answered. Ultra Brother Zoffy is sent from the Land of Light to retrieve Taro's body. After an uncomfortable hospital visit with Takashi and his mother, Kenichi fears that Kotaro died in action. Meanwhile, Birdon attacks and destroys a passenger plane, inciting ZAT to attempt a decisive extermination. They don't succeed, but Zoffy returns to engage the monster in battle. Birdon, however, has proven capable of killing an Ultra, and once again shows lethal aggression. Zoffy died, Taro died too, the title of Episode 18, telegraphs the astonishing on-screen deaths of both Ultra Brothers, falling victim to the savage stabbing of Birdon, one of the most bloodthirsty monsters seen thus far in an Ultra series. In what will become a familiar motif, children gather to pray for their fallen hero, and their united effort bears results. Zoffy, who had the grim responsibility of retrieving the defeated Ultraman in the original series, returns to do the same with Taro, and then comes back to defend the Earth, only to fall to Birdon's lethal attack. It's a sobering installment, with Kotaro appearing only in Kenichi's memory, and the final shot of a lifeless Zoffy establishing a feeling of helplessness. The teaser only extends the dread, offering no glimpses of a living Ultra Brother to release the tension. For Bride of Monster Kid Radio's Beta Capsule Review, this is Mark Matzke reporting.
Monster of is a skyscraper. When he moves, the whole earth quivers and quakes, and an abyss of horror opens up. See these prehistoric beasts emerge from the bowels of the earth after 200 million years to devastate mankind. Supersonic jets cannot catch him. Rockets cannot stop him. Armored tanks are helpless before him. Even guided missiles are powerless. See Rodan destroy a modern city, leveling it to the earth with a killing airstream of his mighty wings. Nothing can stop him. Nothing escapes this monstrous beast of evil.
Our planet may be doomed, our Earth devastated, the monsters are in revolt, and civilization is in chaos. Godzilla is laying waste to New York, Rodan is attacking Moscow, Manda is smashing London, and Peking trembles under the wrath of Mothra. Our battle cry must be, destroy all monsters. Who can say which country or city will be next? We must unite and destroy all monsters. Is there a way to defend against Godzilla, Rodan, Manda, and Mothra? The answer is no. Let our battle cry be, destroy all monsters. Be prepared. See for yourself, in color from American International. Destroy all monsters. This picture is rated G for general audiences. Destroy all monsters.
Bride of Monster Kid Radio listeners, I'm super excited to actually kick off the first episode of 2026 by talking with an author, somebody who is a regular at Monster Bash, a Monster Bash volunteer. Actually, I've seen him running around in the orange shirt quite a bit up there and just kind of doing the Monster Kid thing. I haven't really talked too much with him in the past, so I am honored and thrilled to have Thom Shubilla on the show. Tom, how you doing, man?
Doing great. Thank you very, very much for having me. I really appreciate this. It's been a long time coming that do the podcast here. And, I thought that with my new book, this would be the absolute perfect opportunity because my other two books didn't quite fit in with the podcast. And so I never really reached out. But no, I think that this is the perfect fit.
I think so too, and I think it's kind of funny actually. Kenny, another Monster Bash irregular, Monster Kid Radio irregular, reached out to me just after you and I kind of set a date for this and said, Tom's got this book. You ought to have him on the show. I'm like, great minds, man.
Yeah, great minds alike. I was just thinking that. Yeah,
I'm really excited.
I appreciate that, Kenny. Yeah.
Oh no, Kenny is like keyed in to everything going on with the Monster Kid community and the Monster Bash crowd. And like I said, great minds. The book is King Kong versus Godzilla, the most colossal conflict the screen has ever known. And I want to talk about that here in a sec, but I want to talk a little bit more about you and get to know you a little bit more, introduce you to the Bride of Monster Kid Radio listenership. And to do that, I've got a game.
The Classic Five.
I've got over 150, 200, I don't know, I've kind of lost count. Random questions that have to do with classic monster movies.
Okay.
This or that, which movie do you prefer style questions. We don't do it every week on the show anymore, but this is the first time you've been on the podcast. I thought it would be a great opportunity to get to know you a little bit more and introduce you to the crowd. Are you ready to play a round?
Absolutely, let's go.
Awesome. So we got 5 questions here. Question number 1. What 2 1950s monster movies would make a great double feature?
Ooh, okay. Well, since I can't pick it's 1950s. So my pick always would include Plan 9 from Outer Space.
They come from the bowels of hell, a transformed race of walking dead. Zombies guided by a master plan for complete domination of the Earth. Plan 9 from outer space.
Plan 9 from Outer Space is probably one of the first monster movies I had watched growing up. So I need to include Plan 9 from Outer Space in anything. It's always fun. It's probably a movie I've watched more than any other movie ever.
Okay.
So I need to include Plan 9 from Outer Space. And then, probably on the other end of things, I would probably take some kind of American international film. So maybe like maybe like an Earth versus the Spider.
Deep into caverns whose very air is putrefied by the stench of death. They search ceaselessly for a missing man, or possibly a giant spider no one really believes exists, except the high school teacher who knows his science and his students.
The two movies don't really go together, but both black and white, both from the era.
Okay. One thing I didn't say is that there are no wrong answers. This is awesome. I love it. All right,
random double feature. They don't really have a flow, but I think that those two movies I could watch all the time.
Question number 2: who do you prefer, Lon Chaney Sr. or Lon Chaney Jr.?
Lon Chaney Jr. Certainly, Lon Chaney Jr. I'm a big fan of his work as the Wolfman. I love the Wolfman. I love any guest starring role that he ever was in. Throughout the 60s, any westerns, things like that. Lon Chaney Sr. I do like. I do love the silent version of Phantom. His work is incredible. But I think it's a much smaller body of work to work with here, where Lon Chaney Jr. certainly has a wider array of roles, playing all the classic monsters too.
Question number 3: what other monsters should Abbott and Costello have met in the movies?
Well, the obvious answer here is the creature, since Gilman, since they did meet him on the television show. Mm-hmm. But that somewhat maybe a cop-out answer here. I would have liked to see them meet. I think the Blob would have been really funny.
Ooh. And
on their cartoon, there was a Godzilla-like monster that they did meet. So I think that Abbott and Costello meet Godzilla would be an incredible pick as well.
I've never had anybody say the Blob. I love that. I love that. Oh, man. All right, last question.
Happen. Are you saying the body's gone?
I love it.
Are you saying we have to take it to the Antarctic?
All right, last question. Vincent Price or Boris Karloff?
Oh gosh. Okay. That's a tough one. But I guess I will take Price. I love Karloff. I love his Universal work. I love everything there, but his work in like the William Castle films and the AIP films, those are movies that I could watch on repeat constantly. I thought about watching The Tingler last night. I just didn't get around to it. So I think just as a whole, I like Price a little bit more. And even like yesterday, I was watching. I watched probably the first half hour of Master of the World. I think he's just an incredible actor, and you can kind of plug him into any role. I do love Karloff. I love his classic monster roles. I love Targets. Targets is a really great movie. Peter Bogdanovich. I like his guest starring roles on television as well. So that's a tough pick, but yeah, I'll go Price.
It is a tough one. Do you have a favorite Price film?
Like I said, I love The Tingler, and I love House on Haunted Hill. House on Haunted Hill. Definitely. I absolutely love his role in that. It's one of those. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense sometimes. Like, well, how did all this happen? But whatever. It's a great movie.
Fantastic. One of the questions in the Classic Five, to kind of segue a little bit, is when was the first time you went to Monster Bash? How did you get involved with the Monster Bash?
So, Monster Bash 1998. I was 14 years old, and I found it online somewhere that Conrad Brooks would be there from Ed Wood Players, and I'd never even heard of such a thing, of like even a convention at that point or anything like that. And again, I was 14. I asked my dad. I kind of thought maybe he would say no or whatever, but he's like, oh yeah, sure, we could do that. Oh, great. So I live in like northeastern Pennsylvania, Scranton, Wilkes-Barre. So it's about a 5-hour drive. So we made the schlep out to Pittsburgh, and made some friends at Monster Bash, and continued to go for the next couple of years. Around 2000, I had also gone to Chiller Theater in New Jersey, and the Monster Bash guys were there. And I don't know. I was at that point 16, 17 years old, and I asked, about helping out or something like that. And about a week later, 3 orange shirts showed up in the mail, and I've been involved ever since. And since then, I have done a number of skits, Q&As. Right now, I have 2 game shows that we do at Monster Bash called What's My Monster? Actually, What's My Monster? My father still goes to Bash with me. We came up with it on the way home from Bash one time. It's 10 questions, or whatever you want to call it. What's my line? And so you have 10 guesses. A panel has 10 guesses to guess what monster you're thinking of. Yes or no questions. And then Monster Match Game, which is like the old Match Game television show. I play the Charles Nelson Riley character, of course.
That tracks. I've not seen the Monster Match Game yet, but I was there, I think, the first year you did the What's My Monster, and I still am proud to say that I beat the panel with the monster from Piatas Blancas.
Oh, gosh. Yes, that's right.
Yep. Still beat the panel.
First year we did it, people just came up with fairly typical monsters. That's a tough one. But I think now people are out to get us. They are, they're just trying to stump the panel as best they can. I said it's like a snowball fight. The first year there's some loose snow. Now all year we've been packing in the snow, trying to come up with the weirdest monster we can. So here we are.
It's a lot of fun, and someday I want to get back to the Bash. I've been talking it up with my wife Beth, and she really wants to come out and meet everybody and see what it's all about. I miss it.
Yeah, it's a fun time. It's a great show. Family friendly, and again, just a place that 25 years ago, I met friends for life, essentially. So. It's a cool family reunion, and as soon as people come, they kind of get into it, into the convention, into the feeling of it. I have been to conventions where I was there maybe an hour or so, and at some point I said to myself, I think the only reason why I'm still here is because I paid. And Bash has never been like that. It's never been, even as a staff member or anything like that. I've never said, "Oh, I'm having a bad time."
I've had that experience as well with conventions. It's like, well, I got to get my money's worth. I can't, leave early. I got to stick it out.
Make one more lap. I'm gonna look through this one more time. I don't know.
Never had that feeling at the Bash, ever. So you started going when you were 14, and in the beginning of your book, in the most recent book, you talk a little bit more about being into these kinds of movies. Is this something these classic monster movies and sometimes not so classic, have they always been part of your cinematic identity, the kinds of things that you've been drawn
absolutely. You know, and I write about it in the book. The story is that my mom watched the movie The Incredibly Strange Creatures That Stopped Living to Become Mixed Up Zombies the day before I was born. So I never had a chance, never once had a chance in life. So she watched that you know, the day before. So she was out on maternity leave, and that's what she watched for whatever reason. My father had taped a lot of movies, and I found them essentially pretty early on in life, and started watching black and white movies. I specifically remember like Robot Monster, as I mentioned in the book, King Kong, the Creeping Terror, Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. So these are just movies that I would watch really on repeat sometimes. And so yeah, it definitely became part of my cinematic you know, history. And I didn't even know that there was a term for it. I didn't know that there was a community of this. You know, at this point it was kind of post Famous Monsters of Filmland, pre-internet. So I didn't know that this was a thing, that, you know, that there were other monster kids out there. And then certainly, again, kind of in that internet age, you could find more, and I began trading tapes, and and found Monster Bash, you know, and that really set things off. I always said, like, you know, in high school, you know, college or whatever, you know, I got involved in, I still am to some degree, I guess. I was involved in my local you know, punk rock scene, and you know, people assumed I liked that kind of music ahead of time because I was reading monster books, you know, things about monsters, and you know, Dracula, Wolfman, things like that. So oh yeah, no, of course he likes that kind of music, and you know, so that kind of got me involved in that. So yeah, so it's certainly been, you know, certainly part of my movie identity for just a very, very, very long time.
I sensed a kindred spirit in you as soon as I started reading the book. I mean, we're monster batchers, so there was already that. But as soon as you mentioned the Crestwood House books,
yes,
those were integral for my own development as a monster kid. Because again, pre-internet, all that stuff, you know, growing up, I found these books and devoured them even before I knew what the movies were.
Mm-hmm. I don't think I saw any of those movies, maybe aside from King Kong. And I could still picture where they are in my elementary school library. Like, I could, if I walked into that building right now, I could show you where those books were.
Those books, I think, were instrumental for a lot of people, and also responsible for one of the biggest myths involving King Kong versus Godzilla.
Yeah, absolutely.
The alternate ending.
Yes, yes. The alternate, and that was actually in this book. I almost didn't want to write about that. I just thought, like, I don't need to write about this. This has been done to death. And inevitably, when I told people I was working on this book, they would say, "Oh, are you talking about the alternate ending? Are you talking about the?" I said, "Oh, okay. I guess I have to." So I do go into great detail about that. And how there's not, but somehow, and actually it started with Famous Monsters of Filmland, but actually Spacemen magazine, to be exact, and it just had continued.
Well, a lot of the material that ended up in the Crestwood House books came from Famous Monsters. I know Ackerman provided a lot of the photos and all that. So, yeah, and it was pre-internet, so it's not like you can go online and check these things. You know, it ends up in a book somewhere or a magazine, and just kind of disseminates within the community, because there's no way to know, there's no way to check, that sort of thing. I know the first time I saw King Kong versus Godzilla, I was wondering, what version am I going to see? Is it the American or Japanese? Because I didn't know any better.
I mentioned that in the book. I said, well, I wonder which one it is. I didn't, little did I realize it was in English Of course it would be
right.
American version. But what did I know?
So one thing that about the book that I was really taken by, it's not just about King Kong versus Godzilla.
Sure.
It has its roots obviously in the first two films, the King Kong movie and Godzilla or Gojira. And you talk about what was going on in the, I don't know if zeitgeist is the right word or not, but what's going on basically in the world in terms of movies. You even touch on what's going on a national level, talking about the Depression and how even though there were issues economically across the country, King Kong is still making bank.
Yeah, that was one of the signs that the United States was coming out of a Great Depression. FDR had just been sworn in, and people were a little bit more, I guess, looking forward to things. It was a sign that the Depression maybe had hit its peak, and King Kong was definitely a big sign in that.
And I do appreciate that approach because these things don't all happen in a vacuum. And I find that interesting to me. Granted, when I was in school, I didn't care about history. I didn't care about that kind of stuff. Stuff was boring. Now I find it fascinating.
Yeah.
And to see kind of where things are kind of happening at the same time, what led to this led to that sort of thing. And it seems like you've got that same kind of mindset considering the previous books that you've written. The primetime 1966 to 1967, the full spectrum of television's first all-color season, which, I mean, what a fascinating topic to look at and kind of compile all that information, as well as the James Bond and the 60s spy craze.
I think you have to look at that. You have to look at what was happening during that era, trends. You need to look at cause and effect. Primetime is about the first season that every show in primetime was in color in the United States. And I needed to look at, how the world got to color. I couldn't just start in 1966. I had to say, well, hey, here's how television made it this far. And in the James Bond in the 60s spy craze, I need to look at what was happening in the world that people were looking to, these spy figures. And same thing in King Kong versus Godzilla. Like, well, why was King Kong created? Why was Godzilla created? Why were they successes? And then how did they finally come together? Which is an interesting story in of itself, because they're on two different continents, 2 decades apart. So pretty interesting of how that, came about. But in a sense, their meeting was inevitable.
I've said repeatedly here on the show, one of the things that I love about watching, not just classic monster movies, but just classic cinema in general, is yes, they're great stories. Yes, there's awesome stuff happening on screen, the technique, the art, the craft, but they're also kind of mini documentaries, because when you look at them, you get to be exposed to what was happening in the world at the time that piece of art was created. And I think that's an important thing to keep in mind when you watch a lot of these movies, or not important, but it makes you enjoy the movies on a different level. And I could definitely tell that that's something that you wanted to dive into and discuss with your book. Especially, like you said, these two icons separated by 2 decades, separated by an ocean. At some point they had to come together, and I don't want you to spoil the book, but if you had to pitch to somebody why these two had to fight, had to meet, why?
I think that they were 2 of the most important monsters of their respective generations. Certainly Godzilla was inspired by King Kong, and from the jump the comparisons were made of the two. The two were being compared. The two were, they could have compared them to any other giant monster at the time. But when Godzilla was released, they went right to Kong. It was no accident. And especially by time Godzilla was released in the United States, there had been a rash of giant monsters at that point. There had been, that start of it. They could have compared Godzilla to any of those monsters. they went to Kong. So I think that there was still the fascination with Kong, and also there was again this they were on a collision course, and much like in the movie that these two monsters, when they discover Kong, when they break Godzilla from his ice prison, they are on a collision course with one another, and they also did that in history.
You remember the first time you saw the film?
Yeah, I rented it. I rented it from my local video store, Videoland, in my my hometown of Plains Township. And yeah, I remember getting it off the shelf from the horror movie section. Again, probably just something I had heard about before. I don't really know how old I was. I'm must have been pretty young. But yeah, just grabbed it off the horror movie section, as I would quite a bit. So yeah, I distinctly remember that first time. I distinctly remember, as we had said, thinking about, well, what ending is this? So clearly I knew about the mythical ending, probably from the Crestwood House books, and I just feel like it was something that people talked about. Like if you were talking about monster movies, that's something that people would, for whatever reason, bring up. So yeah, I definitely remember watching it. I definitely remember I wanted to see a more conclusive ending. Because I'm a King Kong guy, I think I was rooting for Kong. I think I kind of remember that too.
I was going to ask who were you hoping would win.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're right. It's not really a super conclusive ending, but you got to leave it open for a sequel. I mean,
yeah. Which there should have been. There should have been. And I've brought this up on multiple times while talking about this book, but I will say it till the day I die. If I had the rights to King Kong, if you said to me, hey, you have 5 years to make King Kong movies, I'd be making King Kong movies till the cows came home. King Kong goes to space. King Kong underwater. King Kong fights Rodan. I'd be making them all. I don't know. I don't know what they were thinking, but whatever.
King Kong versus Rodan. That would be fun.
It'd be great.
That would be fun. I love Rodan. Rodan doesn't get enough love. So
yeah. And I mentioned in that they in the time frame when Toho owned the rights to King Kong, they had made Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster.
Ooh.
Who's a better Earth monster than King Kong? Who's a better representative of Earth than King Kong? Nobody.
King Kong.
That's how they turned
Godzilla
into essentially a good guy. Is that he defended Earth, even though he didn't like humans. Humans were mean to him. He still was fighting on the Earth side, and that was his switch. And King Kong, I don't know, just at some point in there would have made a whole lot of sense. So I don't know.
The possibilities, man. Just thinking about the possibilities, that's awesome. Yeah, Kong versus Ghidorah. Oh man.
Or at least in Destroy All Monsters or any of those, it would have, him being in the mix would have definitely shook things up a little bit. So think about it.
Of the Toho King Kong flicks, the first one I saw of the batch was King Kong Escapes, and because of that, I'm always going to have a love for that film. Mechanicong is awesome.
Yeah.
And I remember watching that at my grandparents' house one afternoon. It was on TV. I had no idea what I was watching, except it was something really cool. And just having an opportunity to see that was just mind-blowing to me, to kind of open up the gates for that style of King Kong movie. Yeah. I hadn't seen the original King Kong at that point. I hadn't seen the original Godzilla at that point. So this was my first exposure to Suitmation. They had to bring King Kong to the world of Suitmation. What was your reaction the first time you saw a man in a suit as opposed to a stop motion Kong?
I don't know if I noticed, to be perfectly honest with you. I was just happy to watch a monster movie. I don't know. I don't know if I really... I don't know. I don't know if I ever really processed that of what was going on until later. I was happy to, I was just happy to watch a new monster movie. That's always been my take. Like I'm just happy I'm here. I'm just happy to be invited to the party, to be perfectly honest with you. Yeah, that's just my feeling with anything. I'm just happy to be here.
Well, I bring up King Kong Escapes because you got an interview with Linda Miller in the book.
It was an incredible interview, by the way. It was such a great person, such a nice a person to talk to. I was looking, well, hopefully I could maybe reach out to somebody who was in the film, and at this point, either anybody who's in the film is deceased, extremely old, or there's a language barrier and an ocean that divides us. So it was suggestion was Linda Miller, who again star of King Kong Escapes, and lives in Virginia, and is extremely happy to talk about it, and for decades had no idea that people were looking for her, had no idea that people cared about this movie, and so I think she gives a really good insight into Toho Studios, gives a really great insight into Ishiro Honda's directing style, gives a really great insight into working with King Kong, being in that system. So it's not an exact match, but certainly was a great interview and worth it in the long run for this book. It did. Originally on paper, it didn't make sense to me, but after I started doing the interview, this works for this book.
So this was set up as a separate interview. This is not something that was pulled from or culled from her appearances at Monster Bash or anything.
No. I did a separate interview with her. Yeah. She was. She sat down with me for. I thought maybe she'd talk to me for a little bit and be like, okay. Buzz off, but she talked to me for about an hour and a half. Really likes talking about this, so she's a great interview. She really loves talking about this kind of stuff.
That's fantastic. I've always wanted to meet her after hearing about how awesome she is.
Yeah.
I like it, Monster Bash and that sort of thing. Maybe someday when I get back there. Do you remember the first time you saw Godzilla?
That I don't. I had to have seen. Like I said, I've seen King Kong. I had seen King Kong. I had seen King Kong versus Godzilla. I don't really remember the first time I had seen Godzilla. I think it's one of those movies I probably saw it in bits and pieces on television for a very long time. I don't know if there was necessarily a home release. And I had seen other Godzilla movies also, Gigan, I definitely owned. There were definitely Godzilla movies I had seen. I don't really remember. I have no real recollection of watching it for the first time. I don't think it was a seminal moment in my life for whatever reason. Again, as a giant monster fan, as a fan of giant monsters, I think it just kind of was eventually got into the rotation of movies. So I don't really have a keen recollection of watching it for the first time. It wasn't exactly a eureka moment.
I have that experience as well with a lot of these movies because I had read about them so much in Crestwood House and in other books or magazines or whatever that, I've told the story before that the first Universal classic monster movie I've seen was Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein.
Wow.
And I must have driven the guys nuts that I was with my best friend Bobby at the time and his dad, and we were watching it in the afternoon at their house. And through the entire movie, I would not shut up talking about what had happened in all the previous films because I knew them from the Crestwood House books, even though this was the first time I'd seen any of the movies. So I don't have that moment where I was exposed to these movies for the first time and have it kind of wash over me and change me because they were always kind of there.
Yeah.
Is there a movie from like the Godzilla or King Kong collection that you wish you could just forget and go back and watch for the first time on the big screen?
Oh gosh. I mean, King Kong vs. Godzilla. I really wish I wish I could. I wish I could watch it for the first time. I wish I could whitewash and experience that for the first time once again. Yeah, I mean, I need to plug the book. Number one, coming up in January, we're doing a showing of King Kong vs. Godzilla at the Gap Theater in
Really?
Yes. I'm hosting it. It's a Gap Theater in Wind Gap, Pennsylvania. The Exhumed Film guys have taken over the theater and showing films on 35 millimeter mostly every day of the week, essentially. And I'm really looking forward to seeing it on that big a screen. I've seen it at the drive-in before, the Mahoning Drive-In. I live in an area that's kind of rich in classic movie showings at this point. So, I've seen it at the drive-in. I'm looking forward to watching it in a proper large theater. So, actually, I think that may be the first time I'm doing that. Definitely, actually.
Oh man, I'm so jealous. We've talked about the Gap Theater quite a bit here on the show because
Okay.
they're always doing cool stuff.
Yeah. And then the following week, they're showing From Russia with Love. I'm also hosting that. So
brilliant.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. So I just pulled that up. King Kong versus Godzilla is happening on Friday, January 16th. From Russia with Love is happening on January 23rd. Yeah. I'll make sure there's links in the show notes, of course,
cool. Thank you.
for this, because that just sounds amazing. Oh, man, they're showing Operation Kid Brother that same day.
Yeah. Operation Kid Brother that night and Deadlier Than the Male.
Oh, man. Get some awesome spy action going here.
Yep.
Oh, man.
I live in northeastern Pennsylvania, which at this point is very rich in a classic monster drive-in culture for whatever reason. We're kind of the epicenter of this right now, so I'm riding this wave.
Sure. No, and I think that's great and it's fantastic. And listeners, if you're going to be there, make sure you head out there and support Tom and support the Gap, because that just sounds incredible. I want to talk a little bit more about just you and writing in general. At what point did you decide, I love this stuff, I got to write about it?
I had always wanted to write about things, but wasn't really exactly sure, how to go about any of this. And and this was 12 years ago, maybe. I started writing for Monster Bash magazine, maybe even a little bit more. And I had bought at a Salvation Army a record about, it was Buster Crabbe, who had played Tarzan and Flash Gordon. It was a swimming record. It was a record to sell swimming pools.
Okay.
And my dad had told me about when he was in, I think, college, going down to the local pool dealer to see Buster Crabbe swim in the pool and sell Buster Crabbe brand pools. And I always kind of remembered him telling this story. Anytime Flash Gordon was on the TV, hey, I drove down to Wyoming pools over here in college to see Buster Crabbe. Oh, really? I didn't know that. Okay. So I got this record. I knew this story, and I thought, I want to do a little bit of research into this. I looked for the pool company. I emailed the pool owner, and I said, hey, just a weird question. Is there a reason why you still sell Buster Crabbe pools? Like, Buster Crabbe's long dead. Why? I'm the only person who knows who Buster Crabbe is. Why are you? And I'm not buying your pool. So the guy emails me back and says, I can't believe that you emailed me this. I haven't thought about this in a million years. He must have been he's the president of the company now. Buster Crabbe saved his life in Mexico after being pulled into the ocean by a riptide at a pool convention. Like there was like a pool like sales convention in Mexico, and the guy tells me the whole story about it, tells me all about the pool, sends me pictures of him and Buster Crab and promotional pictures and things like this. And I thought, this could be an article or something like this. But I don't know who'd care. So I talked to Ron from Monster Bash. He said, I'll put it in the magazine. I said, great. So I write up this article about Buster Crab pools. And I started writing articles for Ron in Monster Bash. Articles about quicksand, articles about different actors, things like that. Quicksand in movies. I thought that was my peak article. I that I absolutely loved. Quicksand in movies. Fake gill men in movies, things like that. I started writing for Scream magazine as well, doing DVD reviews, and I did an interview with artist Drew Friedman.
Okay.
He was a friend of mine. I worked on his documentary. I was a producer on the documentary about Drew Friedman. It's called Vermeer of the Borscht Belt. Out now. You can watch it on anywhere online at this point. You could rent it. It's out from Shout Factory. And I had an idea for this book about primetime television. And I really wanted to focus on Beatles, Bond, and Batman. That was the original idea. But I started writing about it, and then I kind of fell into this television thing. And at Monster Bash, again, where magic happens, McFarlane Books was there, and I said to somebody, hey, if I had an idea for a book, who should I pitch it to? And the lady, Layla, who works for McFarlane, said, well, you're looking at her. And I said, wonderful. Okay. Kishmit, here we are. I pitched the idea, and she said, come up with some proof of concept, and we'll go from there. And so the book was picked up, and we're on a roll now of these things.
I love that. I've never heard the Buster Crab story.
Yeah.
That's what a weird.
Yeah, it was a bizarre story again, and I had picked up this record, and again, it was $1, and I thought, oh, cool, I like Buster Crab, I'm gonna buy this, and I think the one side was swimming instruction, and then the other side was there's some kind of music to swim to or something like that, and I thought it was just really bizarre. And again, I had this story from my father, and as somebody that loves bizarre history, as somebody that loves just weird stories like that, I needed to write about it, and I didn't know that this would lead to anything else, but I thought it was pretty cool. So I'm somebody who likes to continue the document odd things.
You say odd, and I suppose you call them obscure, or these weird little corners of history, pop culture history, whatever. But those of us who really love this stuff, it's just as important to us as
Sure.
world events happening today. It's
Sure.
Sometimes even more so.
Somebody I think in my spy book they said something along the lines of that I talk about too many obscure facts. But well, that's the point of the book. Like, you're reading the wrong book here, buddy. I have no interest in giving you a synopsis of the movie. You have Wikipedia for that.
Yeah,
I want to dive into it. I want to give you the obscure fact. I want to analyze, why this works.
Right. Well, with the James Bond book too, I mean, yeah, you talk about James Bond. Yeah, you talk about what led to that. But then you're also dipping into all the other Bondsploitation, if that's even a term, types of movies. And there's a lot out there. I stumbled across, courtesy of a film company I was working with years ago, the whole Eurospy thing, and had no idea that there were so many James Bond, I don't want to say knockoffs, but inspired films. Okay, maybe some of them were knockoffs, being produced in Italy, just being cranked out, usually with some American star that they were able to get in. And then I had no clue. And now I love them. Sometimes I love the Eurospy films even more than the James Bond movies.
Yeah. I love Secret Agent Super Dragon.
Yeah, and I'm a huge fan of like the Special Mission Lady Chaplin movies, the Ken Clark films. The Roger Brown films, huge fan of what he, I mean, everybody knows that I love Argo Man, but the Roger Brown films, just, it's so cool. And if I'm not careful, this is going to turn into a Eurospy conversation, which is not what people tuned into Bride of Monster Kid Radio for. Although I suspect some listeners wouldn't mind. So maybe you and I can get together and talk more about Eurospy films down the line. But I want to talk a little bit more about the book. How's the reception been?
It's been great so far. On Amazon, we were #1 in new books about horror for quite a little while there. Looking to climb the ranks a little bit more. So I was extremely happy with that. Again, so far just a warm reception. Seemed like I think it wound up in a lot of people's stockings this Christmas for their monster loving friends. So I'm very excited and I love talking about it. I love hitting the podcast circuit, talking about my my work and things like that. We got some pretty big plugs. Like I said, Linda Miller, she's working on something for the book. And Dana Gould wrote the foreword to the book, comedian, actor, writer,
well-known monster kid.
He wrote the foreword. I'd been on his podcast a couple times, and he gave me some really great plugs. So I think all of that certainly has helped with it. So yeah, and I think people are pleasantly surprised. It's not just a history of the movie or a retelling of the movie. That like you said, I look into the time frame.
I think it's a phenomenal book. I think that it would have made an amazing Christmas present. I'm not salty at all that nobody got it for me, but I got it for myself. So that's the Christmas gift to myself. There you go. So if anybody has any Christmas money left, if you got a gift card to Amazon or somewhere else, is it available in other places other than Amazon?
Yeah, Barnes and Noble. All of that. It is available. Yep. Where fine books are sold.
There you go. I will make sure there's a link in the show notes, of course, as well, because I think it's something that listeners are going to dig. I think fans of King Kong, fans of Godzilla, definitely are going to find something in this book that they might not have known before or needed to have reinforced. And then, of course, King Kong versus Godzilla, one of the greatest conflict of cinematic titans ever.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's just a phenomenal film and a phenomenal book.
It's a sin it took that long to come together once again.
Right? So what's been your take on what they're doing with the Monsterverse? Yeah.
It's not going to be my cup of tea no matter what. They're not going to make me happy. Obviously, it's not going to be a Suitmation thing. If Toho did it, I may be a little bit more receptive. I loved Godzilla -1.
Oh, yes.
I loved it a million times more than Shin Godzilla or anything that they had done since I don't know, the 60s or 70s.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Shin Godzilla was pick. I mean, I like Shin Godzilla quite a bit, but Godzilla -1, top notch.
Yeah.
When that came out, my wife and I were in Kuwait working in a haunted house, and we were so disappointed because nobody in Kuwait wanted to bring it in. It just couldn't be brought in to be seen. But it was when we came back to the States, it was the first movie we saw when we got back, and we were like, we got to see it, and it was amazing. It was amazing. So, are you looking forward to the next one?
I am. I like the speculation of, is there going to be another monster?
Yeah.
I'm enjoying that. There are a million fan theories. Like, well, if you turn the logo upside down, it looks like Hedorah. It looks like this person. And I think that's cool. So I like that speculation. I like ballyhoo around movies. So
yes.
That's a lost art I think we don't have anymore. So I like that. I hope he does. And I hope it sets off a trend like in the original Godzilla movies of Godzilla taking on other foes. And I think that they did it right. So
Yeah, I trust the filmmakers now. So yeah, I'm really excited about that.
It seems like they're really into Godzilla. When they showed up at the Oscars with Godzilla statues in hand, I went, these are my kind of guys.
Oh yeah, how amazing was that to see Godzilla at the Oscars like that?
Yeah.
I mean, not just the win, but yeah, to have them turn up, that was amazing.
Yep,
that was amazing. I still think they should have submitted the film for best foreign language film too, because it was so good, so good. What's coming up next for you? You got any other books in the works?
So, yes, I do. What I can tell you, I have not necessarily pitched the idea yet to anybody. However, I am pretty far into it, which is probably not a smart idea because it's always best to pitch an idea before you actually start writing it. But I get on a roll, and here I am. But this next book will combine my love of monsters and my love of television. And the history of monster movies on television. So something that's not necessarily been discussed before. So it would be from, once again, the early days of television through the home video era, I believe probably will be my stop point. When kind of appointment viewing or on-demand viewing is a necessary thing to see a movie.
Right. Well, I am looking forward to it. Please keep us posted.
I will.
Yeah, for sure. Because I want to have you back on the show to talk about upcoming books, or maybe we just find a movie to talk about for an hour.
Yeah, I would love to.
I'm sure we would have plenty to talk about, Tom. So.
Yeah.
Listeners, I want you to check out King Kong vs. Godzilla, the most colossal conflict the screen has ever known. Available now as a paperback, courtesy of Bear Manor Media. Find it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or anywhere else you pick up your books. And if they don't carry it, ask them to order it for you. Tom, thanks for being here on the show. I appreciate it, man.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And thank you for the plugs and thank you for having me on.
Long time coming.
King Kong versus Godzilla. Nothing you've ever seen can equal the thrills of this extraordinary motion picture. Nothing you've ever felt can equal its awesome fury as the mightiest monsters of the ages clash in the battle of the century. It sears the emotions with shock and terror. It staggers the imagination. All new in color. King Kong versus Godzilla.
Well, thank you for being here, everybody. I really appreciate everybody who downloads the show, listens to the show, and I really, really appreciate it when you share the show, when you let people know about what you're listening to and getting them to join the Bride of Monster Kid Radio. As Kenny puts it, Monster Kid Radio heads, we love to have more people here. The more the merrier. We're growing the audience. We are going to make a dedicated effort to get Bride of Monster Kid Radio even bigger, even better, even badder and bolder, and a whole bunch of other B words this year in 2026. And of course, we can only do that with your help. We can also only do that with the help of those who make this show possible. So big thanks to Mark, big thanks to Kenny, huge thanks to Tom for being part of the show, and huge thanks to Podcastcadia, who has for the past, it's been a while now. Has it been a year at this point? Podcastcadia has been the executive producer of what we do here. So big thanks to Podcastcadia for being part of what we do here as well. I love doing Bride of Monster Kid Radio, and it kills me when it's running a little behind, and I want to address that real quick. Normally, maybe not normally, but for most of 2025, we were releasing the show on Sunday night, early Monday morning. And for whatever reason, the past several episodes, I've just not been able to get the show out on time. Now, sometimes it's not my fault. Sometimes it's a technology thing, and sometimes real life just gets in the way. And as we've talked about here on the show in the past, Beth finally had hip surgery. She had hip arthroscopy, where the surgeon went in and reattached some ligaments and all that and shaved down some bone spur material, that sort of thing. And while that is healing, and she's doing pretty well, she's still in a lot of pain and has been starting up physical therapy. So when I'm not working full-time at my full-time day job, I'm here helping Beth out. And I just have not been able to get the show out exactly the way I used to this time last year on the show. And I'm thinking that we may see a slight shift in when the show gets released. Instead of doing a Sunday night, Monday morning thing, you might not see the show come out until, like, say, Monday evening. I haven't settled on that yet, but it's something that I'm playing with. So stay tuned to monsterkidradio.net because that's where everything's going to be. Tune into the show, subscribe to the YouTube channel because you're going to find episodes there, or wherever it is you download your podcast. Just stay tuned because there will be more episodes on a weekly basis coming from Bride of Monster Kid Radio. I mentioned the website, monsterkidradio.net. This is where you're going to find everything you need to know about the podcast. You're going to find everything there. You're going to find links to what Mark's up to. You're going to find links to what Tom's up to in Monster Bash. And you're going to find our contact information. Our email address is monsterkidradio@gmail.com. You can always write in about anything you've heard about here on this episode or the previous episodes or even the previous incarnation of the podcast. You can also call and leave us a voicemail at 360-254-2484. Again, anything you want to talk about, if it's Monster Kid related, I want to hear from you and make you part of the show. You're also going to find our Amazon affiliate link. We are an affiliate on Amazon. If you click on the Amazon button, it's hard to miss. You'll be taken to Amazon. Shop on Amazon as you normally would. We just get a little bit off the top before Jeff Bezos takes that money and does whatever it is he's doing with whatever rocket ship or crazy international wedding or whatever it is he's doing. You're helping out Bride of Monster Kid Radio if you use the Amazon affiliate button to do your shopping at Amazon. Also, I'll make sure there's a special link on the website that's going to take you directly to King Kong vs. Godzilla, the most colossal conflict the screen has ever known. You can pick up this book now. Paperback, $28. Hardcover, $39. Kindle, $9.95. Check it out. It's got the Bride of Monster Kid Radio approval. I really liked it. It's an easy read. I got through it in a couple of days, and I'm going to be going back to it, I think, more than once, because King Kong vs. Godzilla has a very special place in my heart, and I don't think I'll be able to watch that movie now without thinking about this book. So, Tom, thank you. Good luck with the new books you've got coming up, as well as introducing and hosting movies at the Gap Theater. By the way, there will be links to that in the show notes as well. You're also going to find links to most of our social media outlets, Facebook, X, Patreon even, patreon.com/monsterkidradio. Please consider following us over on Patreon as a free member. That way you get notified when I announce what the next episode is going to be about. But if you want to help us out a little bit more, help us pay a few bills, you can become a paying patron over at patreon.com/monsterkidradio as well. Finally, I want to talk about Death Designs, deathdesigns.bigcartel.com. Now, Death is spelled D-E-T-H. It's D-E from Derek, T-H from Beth. deathdesigns.bigcartel.com. We have all of our Hawaiian shirts right now, and I decided, why not? We're going to run that holiday sale that I was running for a little while all the way through the end of this month, which means every one of our Hawaiian-style shirts you can get now for $30, free shipping in the U.S. If you are outside the U.S. and want a shirt, let me know and we'll figure out a shipping option. But I wanted to bring it up because one of my absolute favorite designs, and every time I wear this out, whether somebody is a Monster Kid or not, they always comment on my Crestwood House style shirt. It's awesome. Like I said, it's one of my absolute favorites. And we have sizes from extra small all the way up to 7XL. Go check it out. I'll make sure there's a link in the show notes. Of course, we also have the classic monster movie poster and lobby card collage shirt available in men's and women's styling and available as a skater dress. That's also $30. So please, pick up some gear before we raise the prices come February. Bride of Monster Kid Radio is a Team Death production. All original content of Bride of Monster Kid Radio is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 Unported license. You can learn more about Team Death, our other projects like Death Designs, Mail Order Zombie, the Team Death YouTube channel, and more at www.teamdeath.com. Remember, death is spelled D-E-T-H. All previous episodes of this podcast, as well as the original Monster Kid Radio podcast, are available at www.monsterkidradio.net. Please rate and review Bride of Monster Kid Radio wherever you download your favorite podcasts. The King's Sip is copyright 2025. Beware the dangers of a ghost scorpion. It's available on their EP, Vile Chat, and you can find them over at ghostscorpion.bandcamp.com. They're also on Facebook and on X. Go check them out. Let them know that you heard about them here on Bride of Monster Kid Radio. My name's Derek M. Cook. I will talk to everybody next week. Ciao.